I am here to share a story, a true story, about the time I worked at Blockbuster in the fall of '95 through the winter of '96 in Laurel, Maryland. Back in 1990, I moved from California to Maryland in Laurel, which was right between Baltimore and DC. Come the fall of '95, a couple years out of high school, I found myself applying for a management position at Blockbuster without any experience, but they agreed to give me that chance. And so I was there just for a few months. That's another story. But I was a very good manager. However, Maryland experienced something unusual, at least in the city of Laurel. Usually our winters were really sparse, very, very cold, freezing cold, that kind of bone-chilling cold where you can't quite get warm enough no matter how many layers of clothes you put on. But this particular winter of '95, '96 was quite different. We experienced a blizzard. In my experience, this was the most intense kind of weather I had ever been through. I had to borrow my mom's Ford Explorer and drive on black ice, hydroplane, do everything I could to not kill myself or get in a car accident. It was frightening. And during this blizzard, you could go out and see that all cars were covered just on top of the rooftops. You couldn't even get into your cars unless, of course, they were garaged. And you certainly couldn't get around on the roads unless you had like a 4x4 or some kind of vehicle that was able to get good traction on those slick roads. So when I was working at Blockbuster, which, by the way, during those few months that I was there, was the busiest Blockbuster in the entire country, we experienced this blizzard. And gas stations closed, restaurants closed, everybody closed except Blockbuster. This was also during the time of VHS. So people were allowed a maximum of 9 rentals at a time. And guess what they did? If they couldn't drive, which most people were not able to drive on the roads, so the roads were virtually empty, they would crawl through the snow just to get their movies. So we would have customers leaving with stacks of VHS tapes, just holding them like this. We had bags too, but some people were just taking their tapes so they could have something to do. There, like I said, everybody was closed, and so it was quite funny. What wasn't so much funny though was how busy we were, and we literally had the entire store lines wrapped around, a line, single line wrapped around to one register. Why only one? Because this was why I quit. They would not allow me to have more than one employee on at a time with me during the busiest times ever. And even after I basically complained to them and said, we really need to have more people than this. You think about the customer's perspective. It wasn't pretty to have to wait in this line that literally wrapped from the front of the register all the way back several yards behind me, around by the windows. It was that bad. It wasn't until after I quit, of course, right, that I would go by there to rent some videos, and they had plenty of employees at that time, which they didn't even need for that reason. So they had slowed down, business had slowed down a bit by then. But going back to my story, outside of that one problem, actually, most customers were very pleasant, which is truly surprising given the fact that they would have to wait in these extremely long lines. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed working there. And the thing that I miss a lot is that interaction, that face-to-face interaction that we don't quite get enough of these days, not with all the digital availability of not just renting movies, but of a lot of things, buying whatever you need, your groceries, books, whatever. And then I'm going to leave you with this fun little fact. My first book that I published under Christina Ryan, which is a beach romance, a sweet secret billionaire romance. I have a fun little reference to Blockbuster. I don't call it Blockbuster. There is a fun reference to it a couple times throughout the book. So if you're like me, a bit nostalgic, you miss the 80s, the 90s, you miss those times before we got all caught up in this digital world, I think you'll really enjoy the story. There's a lot going on in it, and that is one of the things that I threw in there for fun. So, and there is one Blockbuster left, if you didn't know. There's actually in the world, there is one left, and it's in Bend, Oregon. And just a few years ago, my family and I took a road trip out there when we were still in California, and we drove to Oregon just so we could see this Blockbuster. It was a typical Blockbuster, right? You got all the shelves with the DVDs, the Blu-rays, and so on. You could buy some of the films. But what was unique about this particular Blockbuster is they have a whole section devoted to stars. So they have like a glass encasement of things that were signed of actual actors who came into that location and left different memorabilia from different films with their signatures. One of the items that you could look at was the armor that why am I forgetting his name, from the Gladiator, not Joaquin Phoenix, or Russell Crowe, that he wore in the Gladiator. And there were some other memorabilia from films that these actors would come and leave with their signatures and just leave for Blockbuster to showcase. It was really cool. And while we were there, the owner of that Blockbuster, who later did a documentary on Netflix, if you haven't check that out. That was a lot of fun. If you're a true Blockbuster fan, it was a lot of fun to see behind the scenes with her and how she's doing and managing this whole situation, you know, hanging on as the last Blockbuster. So we actually got to talk to her, and they also have like those I'm trying to think, those special rubbery cups forgetting what they're made out of, silicone cups with Blockbuster's name on them. This, obviously, I got this too while I was there. Keychains, just all kinds of really cool. And this is like 5 years old. It's like, I've had it for a while, and it just washes really well. And same with the cups. I still have those, and they look just like they did when I first got them. So I'm surprised how well things have held up, you know, because not a lot of things are made that well. But anyway, it was just a lot of fun. And a couple of years ago, if you were a resident of Bend, Oregon, which of course I am not, but if you were, she even did an overnight stay for like, I think it was like $4, just stay overnight, watch all the movies you want, popcorn, everything. I'm like, that was a deal that you can't beat for sure. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this nonfiction piece of my life, and I hope that you have a chance to read some of my books. I have a few audiobooks in the videos here, full-length audiobooks. I hope to do some more in the future too. It's just very expensive. And if you don't mind AI audiobooks, all of my books are actually available through AI on both Google Play and on Kobo, so that's another option. And then my ebooks are available wide, so they're at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google Play, Apple, and I also do have them in paperback on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And in fact, I have one hardback, and that's my first book in the Small Town Secret series. Intent in the Shadows is actually also available as a hardback on Amazon, so that's kind of pretty cool. That's different. So anyway, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this. If you love Blockbuster, if you have anything to say, you want to talk about this video, talk about anything with Blockbuster, hit the comment section below. Let me know. I would love to interact with you. Have a good day.